I came across you. I just randomly came across you by seeing your blog, 50 Odd. I don't know how it suddenly appeared in my inbox, got spammed in my inbox or something. But anyway,
Creepy.
no, or maybe it was LinkedIn or something. But I just thought, oh, this is kind of cool. And then, of course, I checked you out because I'm a super stalker and thought, oh, this is a guy who's ex-advertising who makes sweaters. seemed appropriately bizarre transition. We love those.
Good.
Because I've made multiple career transitions, all of which make no sense whatsoever if you know me. So I thought, yeah, this is clearly a guy after my own heart.
Excellent.
And yeah, and then I looked more into what you're doing and around storytelling and brand building and stuff like that. And yeah, I thought it would resonate a lot with, you know, what we're doing, which is trying to help people who perhaps have never started a business before to think about, you know, how to tell their story. And I feel very strongly that, especially if you don't have any money to start a business and you don't have like a big advertising budget, that sometimes starting from your place of like, how the hell did I end up here? How the hell did you end up making red sweaters is a great place to start, because then it gets people to think, oh, that's quite interesting. I might buy that red sweater, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, what did get you into making red sweaters?
So this is a recorded thing, which is to help you and yours to work out how my journey might have happened, how it did. Is that right?
Yeah. So Startup School for Seniors is just to give you a bit of context, Startup School for Seniors is an 8-week program that's been grant funded in response to COVID to help unemployed or recently made redundant Londoners over 50 to think about how they might start their own business.
Okay.
So we go through everything from what is this about for you, you know, funding, marketing, branding, how to find your first customers, all the usual kind of stuff, but with a 50+ spin on it.
Okay, cool.
Because, you know, we've all lived. So
yeah. Well, the thing is, we're still living, which is the good news, isn't it? So we're the right side. I mean, the reason I mentioned something so flippant is because that's what starts it. I mean, for me, it's rather more philosophical than anything to do with bloody market research or writing a business plan. It's basically the 1,000 months thing. The 1,000 months thing for me is the fact that we're going to be dead in 1,000 months, whether we're male or female in the United Kingdom. 1,000 months is 83 years and 4 months. So women live to 86-ish and guys live to 80 and a half-ish. So it's bang in the middle of when we're all going to die, just to cheer us all up. So basically, I'm 52 now, but as I was approaching my 50th year, I thought, well, that's about 600 of my months gone. What am I doing? So basically, as soon as you start to realize that kind of thing, you forget the two things that are holding us back, in my opinion. By the way, I'll sit here and pontificate about facts. And in fact, they're not facts, they're your opinion, but I don't care because this is me and this is what I do. So the two things that hold us all back, I think, are the fear of being compared and judgment, basically, whether it's one-on-one or with the people next to us. So, and that saps creativity and confidence. And once creativity and confidence have gone, you're screwed, because you end up doing things that other people want you to do in 1,000 months, and it makes absolutely no sense. So the number one thing, I think, is to work out what the hell you want to do and then just fucking do it, because if you don't, you will regret it. And when you're about to die, to stay on this jolly theme, you'll see two films. You might have heard me mention this. You'll see the film you were in and the film you wish you'd been in if you'd had the balls to actually say no. And by the way, on this subject, someone was saying to me quite recently, one of our sweaters on the back has got the word no written on it. And it was inspired by a conversation, actually, that the first conversation of this kind was when someone said, oh, a lot of the work I'm doing at work, it's pretty shit. I said, well, why did you say yes to it then? Just say no. If it's crap work, don't do it. And then, of course, you get the, well, I'm paying the mortgage, to say, okay, fine. When are you going to escape this crapness you've just described? What's your plan? Oh, I haven't got a plan. I said, well, stop moaning then. Continue to do crap work and then die. You know, and it's not that extreme. But if someone says, all I'm doing is crap work and then I die, well, you're doing crap work because you didn't say no, and you're going to die because you're going to die. We're all going to die. So if you want to change it, just change it and stop moaning. I'll calm down in a minute. It's the coffee. It's the coffee. But the reason I create clothing is because I'm fascinated by the relationship between how a person feels and what they wear. It's as simple as that. The fact that when I was 14 and I fancied Claire, who was 16, so she was a woman and all curvy, and I was this little skinny boy, until I had my favorite t-shirt on. Because as soon as I had my t-shirt on, I was James Bond, of course, and I was, what's the word, irresistible, you know, and clearly I wasn't. It was all in my head. But this is a fascinating part of the journey for me. So I'm doing what I feel I was born to do. And I am, sorry, I've gone round the houses, but I'm coming back to your question. If you don't feel you're doing what you're born to do, why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? And you don't have to swap things. You can hedge. You can have 1 foot here and 1 foot there. But don't moan if you're saying yes to doing all the wrong things, because it's you who's doing it to yourself, you know. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah, completely. And I think one of the things that I've definitely discovered through working with people over 50 for the past few years is that they do, mostly I've seen organically, reach a point where they're like, if something's happened to them and they haven't actually made the choice of leaving and they've been pushed out, there is a point where they do go through this wobbly bit where they're like, oh, what does that mean? I've been pushed out. Do I have any value? And they go through this kind of wobbly bit. But then when they come out of it, because they do come out of it, almost inevitably they do, because they have to. The human spirit determines that we must, you know, succeed. Is then they start thinking about what they want to do with their life, right?
Okay.
Then they start thinking about, you know what, I don't want to do something crap anymore. I want to do something that has a purpose. And then they start really digging down into, what does that mean for me? And I think, and I don't know if you've experienced this, but certainly for a lot of people that I've met, these are questions they've never asked themselves. Because they've just gone on and they've paid the mortgage and they've kind of like gone into work every day and they got a paycheck and maybe they got pissed on a Friday afternoon and they went to the pub and they went on a few nice holidays. And do you know what? That was, in my parents' day, that was considered a good life, right? My father never thought about happiness at work, even though he was very successful. I don't think he ever really thought about it. It was just, he was like, what is all this stuff about happiness at work? What is it? But now we do think about that. We think about happiness a lot, and we think about doing things that we want to do and fulfill us at a much deeper level. And I think that what I've seen is that what you're saying about clothing and what it means to you and everything, a lot of people come to that about lots of things, whether it's doing something for society, whether it's, you know, big kind of poverty related or climate change or whatever it happens to be. It's like they want to do something that matters. The issue that they often experience in what I've seen is that they don't know how. They haven't been given the tools to figure out how to take that first step and actually make something real, right?
I have a view that most of the tools you need, you've already got. You don't need new things. And another force, which is definitely true in my experience, is you have to go through good to get to great, and you have to go through crap to get to good. So unless you do something, you'll have nothing. So you go crap, you be crap, then you be good, then you be great. I have a, you know, so don't, it's really weird because the 50 odd thing, the diary, which you were kind enough to look at and then contact me, the tagline that goes with 50 odd is, it's the diary of a man that stopped waiting. And the reason I call it the diary of a man that stopped waiting is very simple. It's because loads of confident conversations that I have as a 50-odd-year-old man are with people. I go, I'm doing this. And they're going, I wish I could do that. I said, well, you can if you want, but I can't because I'm waiting. What are you waiting for? And then you get the silence. Well, just do it then, you know. And if it's about the money, oftentimes one doesn't need as much money as they think to start a thing. And I think it's because, particularly as we get older, we fall in love with stories and change and passion and emotion. And, you know, the 18-year-olds can be pouting down a camera if they want, and that's fine, but that's not what I'm doing in this bit of fashion, which I guess is the world that I'm in. But what's my point there? The reason I'm talking about the Diary of a Man That Stopped Waiting is because, and I'll just repeat it because I think it's that important, is what are you waiting for? You know, because there is such a thing as too late. The only thing, by the way, that I think is too late is when we die, because we can do whatever we want, whenever we want. There are some hugely inspiring people, but I'm going to, slightly serious for a second. We can be those inspiring people. We can be inspiring because I do this for me because I want to. Why shouldn't I? You know, I'm only here for a bit and then I'm gone. But along the way, I have a 4-stage plan for a better life. Shall I tell you what it is?
Yes, please.
Okay. This is my 4-stage plan for a better life, which works for anybody. I should patent it. And then anybody who wants a better life needs to pay me £1. And there are, 7 billion people around, so I could be very rich. Anyway, 4 stages. Number 1, be generous. Because if you're generous, you feel more valued, and that's stage 2. If you're generous, you feel more valued. If you're valued, you feel more confident. And if you're confident, you can do anything. You can take on the world. You can be world class. You can be preeminent. Because if you're confident, you forget the people who are comparing you or judging you. So 4 steps to a better life, and then we'll just end. That's all we need. Be generous, properly generous. Because people go, I am being generous. No, you're not. If you earn 100 grand a year and you give someone 100 quid, that's not being generous. Be properly generous. Give them the resource you've got, which you don't know how much you've got of, which is your time. Give them your time. Give them your passion. Tell them all your secrets. And if you tell them all your best ideas, have another idea tomorrow.
That's right.
So number 1, be generous. Number 2, if you're generous, you feel valued. If you're valued, you feel confident. And if you're confident, you can take on the world. But for me, it all starts with generosity.
Yeah, 100%. When I talk about why I am so passionate about building relationships with people and expanding my network, it's because, and I'm one of those LinkedIn people who pretty much accept everyone, by the way. Like I don't believe in too much discrimination unless I feel that they're going to just be spamming me with stuff that I'm really, and I'm not going to be able to reciprocate in any way, by the way, in that relationship. It's just going to be all one-way yuckiness. But mainly, I feel that in building your big network, you never know when you're going to meet somebody who you're going to be able to either help or is going to be able to help you. And you never know when you're going to be able to pass it on, right? You're going to meet somebody and you're going to say, you know what? I don't need what you're, whatever it is that you've got, but I know someone who absolutely 100% needs what you've got, and I'm going to introduce you. Equally, when I talk to people about things like networking, I think immediately think about what you can give, because the more that you can give, eventually that karma is going to pay you back. And generosity always pays multiple dividends in so many different ways. And so I'm very much an advocate of that. I would also, I was thinking about your thing about confidence. I would also say the other thing about that is related, for me, specifically related to fear. Like, just forget about fear. For me, fear is just like a very short thing. It's you go into something and it seems super scary, but scariness never lasts in my world for more than about 30 seconds. And then you're not scared anymore. That's it. It's like,
I would agree. I would be fibbing if I said I don't get scared, because I do. But then I ask myself, what am I scared of? And then I go, not really sure. Although most of the time it comes back to being judged or being compared. But I don't fear those things anymore now. That's a little bit of a fib, because on my down days, because I have my up days and my down days, I think I've achieved nothing, I've done nothing, poor me, what am I going to do? But then I kick myself up the backside and go, well, it's a day, it's a lovely day, and every day is a lovely opportunity. But you know what? I'm not the bouncy thing that's had too much coffee every day. Because it gets hard sometimes. But on the subject, shall I talk a tiny bit about business, because we're talking to people?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, just a tiny thing, and then I'm over to you, Suzanne, and I'll talk about anything. I'm trying to create, not trying to create, I've created the best hand knits in the world, okay? And the reason why I'm comfortable sitting here saying I've created the best hand knits in the world is because of I've been on a 2.5 year journey to get the solution, by the way. And someone said to me, well, why do you want to do this? I said, and this is an important answer, I think. The someone, by the way, is someone I'm still working with. Well, I said, if I don't, then somebody else will. And it removes all the barriers, because there is the best merino wool in the world somewhere, or all I've got to do is find it. There are the best knitters, all I've got to do is find them. There are the designs that I adore most, and that perhaps a percentage of the marketplace will adore as well. All I've got to do is create that, and then they either will or they won't. There's a difference between the commercial success of Always Wear Red and my success. My success, I've already won. By the way, we're still pre-launch. We're about a week away, so you've got us a very interesting time.
Wow.
And we'll either they're flipping expensive. They're 3 kilograms in weight, and they're mad. But I used to have money. You know what I mean? I've not got as much money now because I've spent it all on stuff and business. But when I had money, I used to buy all sorts of stuff. I used to love getting parcels from All Saints and go, oh my God, I used to cuddle them, and not quite cuddle the postman or the post lady, but I used to adore buying things. These days, I'm a bit more selective, but I was saying to someone just this morning, to Rosine, who I work with, that I'll get turned on by getting a loaf of bread for 5 pence, which happened this weekend. I got a loaf of bread for 5 pence, and it's in the freezer now, and I adore it. But I'll pay £1,000 for a jacket before I die again, I think, because that's the way it is. It's the pain and the reward and the this and the that. I just wanted to say that. And by the way, in the mix, I don't have a lot of holidays, and I'm just saying this not quite to give myself an excuse for the £1,000 jacket, but it's a trade-off. I don't, I live my life as a lot of people do, and it's multi-layered, but it's me. But on the subject of business, I set my goal very precisely. It's an old Stephen Covey thing, I suppose, starting with the end in mind. That's one of the 7 habits of highly effective people, etc., as we know. But starting with the end in mind is important. And creative people like you, because I can kind of tell you're a creative person, a lot of our time, we do start with the end in mind because we imagine something and then work out how to get there. Yeah. And that leads me on to one more thing, which I'll just mention, which a friend of mine said when I shut all the businesses, because to do the clothing brand and to write the blog and to do my consultancy, brand consultancy, I shut down businesses that were turning over 7 figures, employing 30 people. See if I can remember my track. Okay. I knew what I was doing, but I didn't know what I was for. I didn't know the change I was trying to make. And my work, you mentioned it, it didn't matter. Or I wasn't sure how it mattered and who to. So my work matters now. And in theory, if it matters, it'll resonate. And if it resonates, people engage and communities build around brands. And I'm lucky that I've advised at board level some of the biggest brands in the world. And the ones that sorts the best from the rest are the ones that try and do something that makes a difference. Great question. Not what do you do? What are you for? If this is meant for people who are building businesses, don't ask yourself, well, ask yourself what you do first, but then ask yourself, what are you for? Because that's about purpose. The change you're trying to make. What is the change you're trying to make? And does it matter or does it not matter?
No, I agree. And I think also the interesting thing about doing kind of what sounds like a bit of a luxury product with your clothing brand, it, you know, if I'm wrong, just tell me. But
No.
one of the things I think that we've seen in COVID is that, you know, people are certainly talking about consuming less, right? Spending less money, spending less on, you know, less acquiring crap clothes, cheap clothes, filling landfills with rubbish, you know, fast fashion and all that sort of stuff. And I think that when I look back to my childhood and how we used to buy clothing, it was very much with longevity in mind. It was fewer things lasting longer. And I think now that we are going to, you know, like if I had a crystal ball, I would say that fashion that is resilient, fashion that lasts, fashion that's the timeless sweater that you will pay a few £100 for, but you say, you know what, it doesn't matter because I'm going to have this sweater for the rest of my life. That's how much I adore this sweater, right?
Sure.
It's probably going to be more now on people's radar than ever before, because I certainly know that I have stopped shopping in the way that I did pre-COVID. And I'm now starting to look at, you know, like you said, I have I have thought that my one piece of, like, I will give myself this piece of clothing one day, is I want a Mark Powell suit. I want a Mark Powell handmade suit. That's what I want.
Okay.
It's the only thing I want. It's £2,500. Well, actually, it's £2,500 this month. It's £3,500 next month, because he's doing some special offer I saw, and I was like, Mark, I don't really need to know that because I still don't have £2,500.
Yeah.
But every time I look at his Instagram or whatever, I'm just like, I will one day have a handmade suit. That's my thing. I will.
And it has to be from him.
Has to be from him.
Why?
Well, he's one of the few tailors that does women's wear, right? So mostly if you go down Savile Row and stuff, they just don't do women's at all. They won't do women's because it's a completely different cut, fit, and everything. And Mark does women, like men's suits for women. He does the double-breasted, kind of almost 1930s looking. Well, he does a kind of that vintagey thing. And I sing jazz and blues on the side, and I've just kind of like imagined myself in this kind of gorgeous 30s inspired suit when I eventually play Ronnie's. So,
yeah. Okay.
So yeah, that's my end in mind. My end in mind is on stage at Ronnie's, Mark Powell fitted suit, singing jazz, you know, three-piece band. Awesome.
We're back to storytelling, aren't we? Either the people that tell us stories or the stories that we tell ourselves. And you know, I don't see buying a 5p loaf of bread as denying myself of something. It's just a funny little thing. But then in the past, you know, a Tom Ford suit is a £4,000 suit. And I'm always reminded of, I love the science and the magic of the Tom Ford brand. I've only bought bits and bobs back in the day. But I love a quote from Tom Ford, because he once said, apparently, from a thing I was reading, he sits the gang down every season, or as they prepare for each new season, he says, we have to remember that nobody has ever needed anything we have ever made. We have to make them want it. So that's where we are, because the stats in my world are 73% of all clothing gets buried or burnt within 3 years, as you mentioned. And the weird thing is, where you and I are the baddies, is that we wear with any regularity between 10 and 20% of all the clothes that we buy. The rest is worn annually. And that's based on some recent research. And one more, the scariest piece of data which came into my world working in clothing was that a third of all clothing ever made never hits the market. And the reason is because it's considered to be non-fashionable or last season's. So it just gets burnt or buried. Yeah. By the way, because we're meant to be not just saying hello and having a nice time, you and I, it's chatting to other people. there's a bit of always where the bit of the company I've got, which we buy back the stuff, because people talk to me about, this sustainability lark. There's a lot of bullshit around sustainability.
Yeah.
A lot of people pretending. So as part of what we do, for example, is if you want to sell back anything you buy from us, ever, we'll buy it. We'll refurbish it, because it's meant to last forever. It's meant to be that thing that your kids want. So if we say one thing and behave in a different way, that's bullshit. So our labels are woven in a very precise way, sustainably. The packaging, the paper that we print on. I'm going to mention this. So the paper that we print on for the little swing tickets is impregnated with seeds. So we encourage you to throw it into your garden, and it turns into poppies. So, red poppies. But the point is, it's not going, sustainability is a tick box. It's how can you go further? How can you go further? Think further is a brilliant, brilliant mantra for life and business, I think. Always think further. So it's not about, it's recyclable. No, it's not recyclable. It becomes something else. And what the hell is a swing ticket for anyway? You know what I mean? It has a practical application. It tells you the size and the issue number, because they're all numbered. But my point really is, be brave enough to think further. Braver brands are the ones that are remembered and loved anyway. I'll mention this, and then I'll shut up and we can listen to you. Most people, when they're launching a business, I think they do half a job. They learn the rules of the game. They learn how to promote. They learn the margins, the gross profit, the net profit, what's expected, and then they stop. And then they come to marketing companies like mine and go, we just blend in. I say, it's because you're doing the same as every bugger else.
Yeah.
And I talk about Lucasade, Powerade, Gatorade, Red Bull. Red Bull didn't go, ooh, what aid can we be? And Red Bull at one time sold as much as the whole of the category put together. So the thing is, a little bit of left field thinking. Once you've learned the rules of the game, and it's in all of us, I think, to be slightly bonkers. That's a valuable attribute. Being slightly bonkers, like you and me, and we don't even know each other, is useful. It's useful.
Oh, completely. And I think what really resonated with me from what you've just said, and because I'm in the process of relaunching and rebranding a business that I run. My main business is running. It's called Silver Sharers, and it's about older people basically renting out spare rooms to people of any age, but allowing them to remain in their home and make a new friend and all of that. And we're doing a big rebrand and a rebuild and doing some illustration, all sorts of very exciting stuff. But one of the things that you said that I thought is, the thing is that every part of your business can tell a story if you think about every part of your business.
Absolutely.
Right? So
Absolutely.
When you talked about the swing tags, immediately I thought, swing tags, that's the thing you chuck away, right? But as you're looking at it, you're like, what if I didn't chuck this away? What if I did something with this? Nudie Jeans does the, you can bring Nudie Jeans back and they'll repair them for you for free so that you can keep those pairs of jeans forever. And I shouldn't be saying this, but my previous lodger was throwing out some jeans, one of which was a pair of Nudie Jeans. So I tried them on. They had a hole in them and they fit and they looked really good. So I took them to the shop.
That's good.
And I got them fixed and now I wear them and he doesn't know that.
He might do now.
But I was like, why am I going to throw these jeans out? I know that they're going to get, and they will take those jeans, even if you bought them at a secondhand shop, they do not care. As long as they're their jeans, they will repair them forevermore. And I think, that's what sustainability is about, right? That's what passing it on is about. That's what thinking about every piece of your supply chain, each piece of it, and storytelling each part of that, because I'm going to tell you that story about those Nudie jeans. And you might remember that and think, that's quite interesting,
Well, again, it's a very trite remark, but the only thing that matters is everything. I think. Everything. Because if it doesn't matter, that's not good enough. You know, we're only here once. It's not good enough. And a bit of my life, the bit that makes me money, because the other bits don't make me money, is my brand consultancy. So I do get people, and by the way, because my overhead is much lower than it used to be, you know, I haven't got £1 million wage bill anymore. I'm horrible to clients. And because I'm horrible to clients, they kind of like me more, which is weird. So recently, people, you know, a client said, why are people not interested in us? And I said, because you're not interesting. It's very simple. To get people interested in you, be interesting. You're fucking boring. You know, all you're doing is the same as everybody else in the category, and expecting by some magic trick that you're going to be chosen. So there's another there's a 3-step thing which I wanted to mention to the people who are thinking with you about starting a business. And it's basically notice, remembered, chosen. Because a very scary statistic is that about 96% of all promotional activity relating to brands is neither noticed nor liked. 96% globally is wasted. 90% isn't noticed. 6% is noticed and not liked. Go Compare, for example. Yeah. Does me head in, but we know it's there. 4% of business communication is engaged with, liked, resonates, builds relationships, and that's not good enough. So there's lots of awful agencies just taking your money for no good reason, apart from to service their selves. So again, if you're starting a business, the way to get noticed is actually with a really interesting sentence. It's better to be different than it is to be better. Because if you're trying to be better, the battle of better is a boring one, and it never ends. The battle of different is a finite battle, because you can own your uniqueness and be proud of who you are. Our sweaters are not £100. They're not hundreds of pounds. They're into 4 figures, which means you'll either buy them or they'll go, oh my God, I'm not paying. But that's up to you. You know, we can only make 300 a year anyway. So we're not trying to change the world. I'm trying to change my world. And that, again, is important, I think, because, you know, maybe someone in their 50s or older, or any age, can we change the world? The answer is yes. But the first thing to change is your world, because that's what you can change with relative ease. And then once you start to love the new you and the new world you've created, if it resonates, other people will too. And you mentioned earlier that people might worry about not having a market. You use the term advertising. Advertising is, and this is just my view, but it's slightly, it's a truth anyway, is that advertising is not for new businesses. Advertising spend is generally for the reinforcing of an existing brand position. New brand positions are largely executed by PR and storytelling, because you've got a story to tell. When James Dyson launched 15 years ago, he told us there was no loss of suction. That was new. The fact that, my God, every time I clean the carpet, it gets less and less suctiony. He removed that, and I think I'm making up words now, aren't I? Less and less suctiony. But that was storytelling around how it works. There was a degree of advertising, but now he'll advertise to reinforce the brand position that he owns, which is no loss of suction. So that's the way it works.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. And I think I do tell people that the best way to promote themselves at the beginning is to think about their own story, to think about their lived experience, to think about what it is that's making them do what they're doing. My one question that I have left, because you've covered a lot of them, is around, so I suspect that you and me get off on words.
Yeah.
I get off on words,
Yeah.
and I love writing, and I've written since I was a kid, and sometimes I am just compelled to write something because of, whatever. But I know that for a lot of people, words are not something that comes easy to them. And how important is it, do you think, to be able to express yourself through words? What else can you do if you're not, or even if you're shy? I mean, this is one of the, when you're a big personality like we both are, then clearly going out there and just saying, hey, you better listen because I'm doing this stuff now. And everyone's like, whoa, okay, fine. I'll listen. What are you doing now again? What's going on this week?
As a general.
But yeah, how do you do it if that's not something that comes naturally?
Well, there's two or three things pop to mind as you were asking me the question. One is create a brand, because a brand is a living entity in itself, because it stands for something. I will come back to these things, by the way, if you want to dig deeper. There's two other things that came to my head. One is I don't really like people, as a general rule. I don't really like people. I'm quite intolerant of silly people and who are being something that they're not. And that isn't, I'm not horrible to people, but I'll just move on. I kind of like raw, heart on the sleeves, clumsy, awkward people, the Jarvis Cockers of this world, or the persona that it creates. I will come back to your question. One more thing I want to mention on this subject. I was lucky enough, a guy wandered into my life 10-ish years ago. He was the former head of planning and strategy in three countries around the world: New York, Singapore, and London. Hugely knowledgeable man. He's in his 70s now. And I would go to meetings with him because he worked for me. I was lucky enough for having worked for me. And he would say to people, what do you mean? What do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about. And I thought, my God, I'm trying to get this client to pay me tens of thousands of pounds a year. And Les would lean forward and go, I haven't got a fucking clue what you're saying. What are you talking about? And the reason I'm saying this is coming back to your question about words. Most people who are overly wordy, they don't know what they're talking about. They're complicating things far too much, and they're being the wrong kind of other thing. Deep down, I think we're clumsy and awkward. And, Les used to talk about whenever you write something, it should be understandable by the average 14-year-old. And that's the way I work with all brands, no matter who they are. Because jargon will either embarrass or confuse, neither of which are valuable under any circumstances, I don't think. But on the subject of somebody who just doesn't want to be out there, who is a little bit shy, to use your words, you can put things between you and what you're frightened of. So, for example, if you don't want to speak to customers, do I want to buy from a brand that doesn't want to? You got to ask yourself some serious questions. I don't think that everyone in business needs to be a bouncy thing, but you must communicate and you must respond. And I think you've got to. A key question which I asked earlier is, what is the problem you're trying to solve? If you don't understand the thing that you're trying to address in the market, and you're not interested in people and the problems that people have and making people's lives better. The reason you and I will remember perhaps, where did you grow up? Where were you?
I moved to London in 1974.
And before that you were?
In New York.
Okay, so Starsky and Hutch. We know Starsky and Hutch, do we? Okay. So when I was 13-ish, 13, 14, I asked my mum to knit me a Starsky cardigan. Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay. When I was 14. Now, this is important if you're talking to women and guys who are thinking, I want to start a business. I'm now 52, and I've built a brand, a global #1 in my brain, around what happened to me when I was 14. So if you're looking for authenticity, it's there. And by the way, the brand reason why I create these 3 kilogram weight cardigans for £1,000 is because when I wore my Starsky cardigan as a boy that goes like this, I could be me and I'd have time off. I could hide if I wanted to, because the world's a shitty place sometimes. Yeah. So the story of Always Wear Red, the cardigan thing I'm doing now, 40 years later, 35 years later, is the slogan is for the rest of your life. And it's because I have a 4-year-old daughter, and I will occasionally be with Isabel and on my phone, being a crappy businessman and a crappy dad. So I'm basically saying, built into the brand is when you're off, be off, be with the children, be with the people who you love and do what you're doing. And then when you're at work, do your best work.
Yeah.
So my point is, the story of me is in every aspect of the product and the brand, because even if I wasn't wearing this today and I was describing it to you, you could probably imagine it. It's not going to be a flimsy 3-ounce polyester thing, because I ain't going to hide you from the world. And I want Isabel to want this cardigan after I've worn it.
Yeah.
With merino wool, you don't have to wash it. You wash it once a year and it's fine because it's antimicrobial. So it gives you your time back and your money back. And we give you enough flipping stuff to wash it for about 28 years because it's 28 washes. So there's all this weird stuff going on. Weird, by the way, is so valuable. So in my opinion, more weirdness is really important. So be weird. That's a good bit of advice, I think.
Maybe we should close with that. Be weird.